Hello everyone and welcome to this webinar named Traders Toolkit, Part 1. My name is Stanislav Bernuhov and I'm a full-time trader with over 11 years of experience in trading Forex, futures and CFDs. Today I will be a host and I will share with you some interesting information concerning trading. The title of the webinar is Traders Toolkit. We will talk about useful services, useful software, useful websites and other tools that may be useful for a trader for analytical purposes and for whatever purposes. Most of them are free, but not too many traders have heard about those services. So I'm going to share with you this information, and also I will show you how I use those services. In other words, how to use this information. Because there is a lot of information in the web, but we should know what to focus on, what information is relevant for our trading success. Okay. Before we start, let's traditionally take a look at the disclaimer. Information in this webinar is provided for educational purposes only and by no means can serve as a trading or investment advice. Risk of trading in financial markets can be substantial and you will have full responsibility for any of your trading decisions. Past performance is not a guarantee of future returns, so please be aware of the risk. With that, we are ready to start the webinar. Okay, what are we going to talk about? The Traders Toolkit will consist of actually 5 key points. First of all, we will talk about services for screening and monitoring the market data. Well, we are all familiar with charting, with charts. We all observe charts, we all analyze charts. But in fact, to do top-down analysis, to be prepared for the market action, it's very useful to see the big picture, to analyze 10 to 20 currency pairs at a time. But if you just view charts and if you don't see any other numbers, it will be a pretty difficult task because you will be selective. You will be stick to the patterns that you know the best. So we want to analyze not only charts but also numbers. We'll talk about that. Also, it's point number 2, news aggregators. Well, news feeds, news aggregators, we all live in the world where tons of information is coming to us from the websites, from newspapers, from web services. We have Bloomberg, we have CNBC, we have other resources, we have other sources. So we have to know how to focus on the right information, how to filter irrelevant information, what to focus on. So I will tell you about a few web services, aggregators that combine different elements of information for your convenience that might be useful for you as a trader. The third point is data and research. We not only want to see the news, we also want to monitor the data. What do we need to capture from the web? Well, of course, it is market data, it is open interest, it is volume, it is other information that concerns any numbers, any facts, any behavior of the big market participants, and so on and so forth. It also can be a seasonal research and other researches. Well, most of services for research and analysis are not free. They require some payment, monthly or annual, but in some free trial modes they are free, so you can use it in a trial mode. Also, point number 4 is useful software. We will talk about software for backtesting, for simulated trading, for analyzing markets, not market actually, but for analyzing your trading logs. You can upload your trading statements and analyze your log to see whether you're a good trader or not. Actually, it's a joke actually. Well, you can see whether you are trading effectively or not. And also the last point is scripts and indicators. Because there are tons of scripts and indicators for MT4 trading platform. Of course, I don't use all of them. I use only a few of them, only those which provide the most valuable information. And the first website or resource that I watch in the beginning of the week is Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System. It is the primary source of liquidity for today's markets, so it is worth watching. There are many useful articles here. For example, you can watch publications concerning monetary policy here. If you want to keep an eye on the macro big picture, you definitely should read some of those articles. You should be aware of the balance sheet, of credit and liquidity programs. Well, this information is related to performance of American dollar, and it will influence the US economy and the US dollar as well. But what I really monitor, I go to news and events, and I want to know when minutes of the Federal Open Market Committee will be released. I go to this link, FOMC calendar, and I want to know when will be the next date of release of these minutes. It is July 26th, 27th for the current month. So I will monitor the market very closely at those dates because it has become volatile. Market watches this information very closely. The volatility is going to be increased. So I will take this into consideration in planning my trades. If I am day trading, I will not possibly enter the market at this time, or if I am a swing trading, if I am holding a position, the volatility can help my position to reach my targets. But you can not only monitor the website of the Federal Reserve, you can also subscribe to Twitter, and you will never miss important events. For example, here we have weekly balance sheet updates. You can read this if you are interested in this information, if you're interested in macro big picture analysis. Also, here are job postings and other relevant information. Well, you can read the tweet and you will never miss important information. And I want you to show a couple of useful services that I also monitor for the sake of analysis. First of all, it is Infotree.com. Infotree.com. It is an engine for analytical research dedicated to market sentiment. What is the market sentiment? The market sentiment means that this engine analyzes entries in social networks, in blogs, in some other resources, and it makes a conclusion about the market sentiment. In other words, if there are many keywords positive to whatever asset, it thinks that the sentiment is positive. If there are many negative keywords, this engine tells us that the value of the sentiment is negative. When you can subscribe to this this service, it's absolutely free. Of course, there are some plans, some paid plans, but I use the free type of this free version of this service. And what we want to do here as currency traders. Here we have several columns: equities, forex, commodities, and cryptocurrencies. We go to the forex, and for example, we can monitor euro versus American dollar. Here we can I don't know, choose American dollar versus Japanese yen or some other currency pair. For example, we can monitor the yen, and the sentiment chart will look differently. Alright, let's get back to euro versus American dollar, and I will show you a couple of interesting things that you might be unfamiliar with. Alright, euro versus American dollar. Alright, what information can be useful for us as a traders here? Well, you see the chart of the market sentiment of 2016, and you see here peaks which are the highest point, the highest value of this chart, and lows, which are the lowest value of this chart. Well, we have a low at January 31st, we have a low at March 2nd, and we have a high at May 2nd. We have a high on May 2nd. In other words, at this day, on this day on May 2nd, we had a lot of publications in social networks on the web concerning to the strength of euro versus American dollar. When we see that we have such kind of situation, we know that the crowd or the public is very optimistic about the asset. So they want to buy, they believe in the strength of the currency. Maybe it is pushed by a possible uptrend. The market was going higher, and the public believes that the market will continue going higher. And the same thing, when we see the low, for example, as for January 31st or May 3rd, the public is pessimistic about the asset. In other words, they don't believe that euro will grow. They believe that it will fall deeper and deeper, and I don't know whether it is a law or not, but actually when the market is over pessimistic about the asset, we see the intermediate term low. When the market is optimistic about the asset, we see the intermediate term high. Well, let's see how it works. For example, May 3rd, 2016, okay, May 3rd is the lowest value of the sentiment index. May 3rd, what do we see here on the chart? And the May 3rd was, the day of May 3rd was right here, and you see that we had an intermediate term low here. Intermediate term low, well, actually the same thing with January 31st. The same thing. We also had intermediate term low. What about May 2nd? What about May 2nd? And for May 2nd, you see that we have intermediate term high here. Well, it may not work the same way in all cases, because sometimes market can be trending. The market is range bound here. It goes in form of rapid swings. It goes from one side of the range to another side of the range. Sometimes market is trending, and sentiment is not very useful for decision making. But when you see the negative sentiment here or the positive sentiment, you should pay attention to this information, because possibly market can be heavily overbought or market can be heavily oversold. What about now? It is July 21st. Do we have negative sentiment right now? It is 1.10. It's pretty negative value, but it is not the record for the negative value, because here we had 1.08, 1.08 also at January 31st and February 1st. So now it's not very negative. Well, we want to see really negative sentiment or really positive sentiment. So that's why when we have seen 1.15 for May 2nd, we pay attention to the situation, because it tells us that the sentiment is really optimistic. And also you may see that market is breaking all major highs simultaneously. Well, we have the high from August 2015. It is pretty distant high, but here we have several extreme points that are broken during the May 1st and May 2nd. So market usually reverses after it breaks important extremes. It may be monthly extremes or 3 months or 6 months highs. It goes lower in such situations. And you also see that market not only breaks, but also the sentiment increases. Sentiment here sort of confirms your hypothesis that the market is overbought, and you have to possibly search for a short position. What about now? 1.10. It's not very negative. What is happening with euro right now? But the euro also is not very low here. If it breaks down, possibly the sentiment index also can go lower. But actually it is not the only type of analysis that we should use, because sometimes market can go outside of this long-lasting trading range, and in this case you should not only pay attention to the sentiment, because sentiment can be very negative. It can go much deeper in the negative values, and it can stay there for a long time. Market here is located in a trading range since March of 2015. So possibly it is more than 1 year. The range lasting more than 1 year. So I think that we can break this long-lasting trading range. And here it is not a reason to go long if you see the negative market sentiment occurring at the descending trend or the price action, which will go down. But you understand that if the markets are not very trending, if they are trading within a trading range, you can use this type of analysis, sentiment analysis, for purposes of confirming your hypothesis. And to register on this website, you can go to Infotree.com, and then you will get to Finsense.com website, which allows you to do this analysis and research. We have here we can search here for any other current currencies, select base, select secondary, and analyze other markets as well, commodities and even equities. Also, you can monitor the same web service but slightly different. You can access it by the website upfind.com, and here you have several tabs: macro view, Dow Jones 30, commodities, US and China, US housing, currencies. If you click the currencies tab, you can compare current charts of currency pairs with S&P 500. You see the sentiment, the dollar news sentiment, for example, here as well, like in the previous web service. But even more importantly than that is that you can monitor sentiment reading news here. If you click the USA and China tab, you can watch the news that are aggregated from several resources. For example, here we have latest strong positive negative headlines for China and United States. Well, for example, you can click here. It is a negative article, okay, and you get to the Bloomberg, to the resource of this article, and you can read this article. It's pretty convenient because you don't have to go to different websites mining for the news, so they are all combined here. Well, mostly the source for the news here is Bloomberg. Well, as for Infotree, we also have the tab sources here, and we can also read news. For example, if we click sources, we can choose the category which is market news, business news, general news. For example, we click general news here and go to this source, and you see that we have different sources here, not only Bloomberg. We also have, I don't know, the Telegraph of Calcutta, I don't know, Fox News, Singapore websites, and other sources. For example, we want to see some Asian news, and we can go to, for example, Malaysia Chronicle if you're interested in it. Well, but let's try to pick something. Well, let's go to the Telegraph Calcutta if we want to monitor some Indian news, and we have headlines of this newspaper. It's pretty convenient because you can have a big picture of what is happening in the world, what is in the headlines of major resources, and that it is pretty convenient. It is all here. And another useful resource for a trade is www.barchart.com. It combines much information concerning trading, Forex, futures, CFDs, options, and other markets. For our purposes, we go to the Forex tab, and it is available by the link that you see here on your screen. And we go here, more Forex. We need this column, more Forex. What do I usually watch here? I go to highs and lows, and I want to see the big picture. So what I want to really see here is year-to-date high, year-to-date low, and here I have many currency pairs. I don't see charts, but I see many currency pairs. Forex year-to-date highs and lows. That's what we can watch here. The major concept in trading currency is that currencies are not really trending markets in comparison to commodities, to stocks and other markets. They are not really trending markets. They are range-bound markets. And if you see that some market is very close to year-to-date high, like here, I don't know, it may be 1.45%. It is Swedish krona. Well, usually I don't trade this market. Well, but for example, if we pick something more liquid, it can be New Zealand dollar. It's minus 4.51% from the year-to-date low, year-to-date high. Sorry. So it means that market is pretty close to its annual high. It doesn't mean that it will reverse quickly, but it may be an indication that market may be overbought, or you may pay attention to this market. Well, 4% is pretty large value. What I want to see is possibly 1% or 2%. Well, for example, Euro versus British pound. Euro versus British pound. It is located not very distantly from the annual year-to-date high. Now if we watch this chart, let's go to the weekly chart for convenience, we see that really market is located from the year-to-date high, which is somewhere, I believe it's somewhere here. It has broken this year-to-date high, I believe. Well, for the long-term high, which was established in 2012, it's also not very big distance. So this point is pretty fragile for this type of an asset. Well, market can rotate back and forth, and then it can generate the rally to the downside. Well, of course, it is weekly chart. It's very big picture. It's large perspective. But in our analysis, we should start with the big picture. Also, you can watch the column year-to-date low. If you see the annual low and see that some currency pair, for example, like American dollar versus Indian rupee, shows you the increment of just 2% from the annual low, it possibly means that it is a good possible market to join the long trade in a medium term and even in a long term perspective. Let's watch this chart. Let's watch the weekly chart. First of all, you see that it is pretty trending market, and the annual low or year-to-date low, which was established this year, is located here at 66.07. And we might see some kind of formation to join to the long side, possibly to join this trend. It is a pullback. We have a trending activity. We have a pullback. Well, the low that was established in 2013 is not broken yet, but it can happen during the rest of the year. I'm not sure that it will happen in this month or in next month. It is a long-term perspective, but you can keep an eye on this market, assuming that possibly we're located somewhere near the lower side of the trading range. And another interesting group of markets, in my opinion, is Euro versus Australian dollar and Euro versus Canadian dollar. Here we have 2% from the year-to-date low and 2% and 24 from the year-to-date low for euro versus Australian dollar. Besides, euro versus Australian dollar is pretty trendy market. Let's watch this market right now. And you see that it was trending, but this trend was happening inside of the trading range. According to my opinion, we have some room to test lower side of this trading range, but for now it's not happening. Market pulls back, and possibly we may think of the building or establishing a long trade or long position working in the direction of the average point of this trading range. Euro versus Australian dollar looks pretty interesting. Let's watch Euro versus Canadian dollar. Okay, it is the weekly chart of Euro versus Canadian dollar. You might see that also we are leaning to this lower side of the trading range. And regarding the fact that currencies are really not very trending markets in whole, they are more range-bound markets, we can build an expectation or an assumption that possibly here we can have a support and the market can return back to the at least center of this trading range in medium-term perspective. Why do I skip euro? Because euro at the first sight is also interesting market here. Euro versus American dollar. It is 2.87% from the year-to-date low. Well, mostly euro was very trending previously, but now it is not located at the lower side of the range. It is located right in the center of this trading range, and I wouldn't say that this is a very good opportunity. Well, in a long-term perspective, well, it might seem that it is pretty close to the to current lows or to year-to-date lows, but in fact, market can test lower levels and only after that it can reverse. Well, if the market will be ready to reverse, I don't know, maybe it will resume going down, resume downtrend. And that's why for euro versus Australian or euro versus Canadian dollar, situation looks more interesting for trading or for building expectations, assumptions, and establishing a trade. Besides, if you, for example, look at the euro versus Australian dollar, you combine euro and its weakness with the Australian dollar, which was relatively strong recently. And that's why this currency pair can remain stable and not go to downtrend in case euro breaks its trading range to the downside. What do we have here else? We have so-called Forex heat map. It is a market snapshot from major currency pairs, and you can easily see what is strong now and what is weak now in comparison to each other. And we see that here we have the red group and the green group. Well, if you watch this heat map, sometimes it can help you analyze the market easier or analyzing the market faster. Well, as for me, I prefer to see highs and lows, year-to-date highs and lows, which we have here, highs and lows. It is more convenient tool for me. You can decide for yourself what is better for you. I prefer to work with numbers and charts. I don't trust this visual information like colors, red and green. Well, but you may use this information for your favor, why not? Also, you can see some news and commentary here. I don't know whether you need this news, well, whether these news are relevant for you, but they are related to Forex markets. As for me, in my personal opinion, it is more convenient and easier to use aggregators like Opfine or Infotree, which I was showing you so far in this webinar, because they combine much more resources, much more websites, aggregating news from different sides of the world, from different newspapers, from different sources, and that's why we have a larger perspective on what is happening in the world, what is happening in the markets, what is in the headlines for today, and also we can see sentiment. And barchart.com is useful for screening and monitoring services like highs and lows, market overview, forex heat map. You can use it in your favor for the sake of your analysis. Maybe you will not use this because you can do everything in your trading terminal in MT4. Everything is available here on the charts. But it will take some time, of course, because if you have to go through 20 charts, it may take some time. Well, of course you will do that. But to start your analysis, you can use screening and monitoring service like Barchart and any other service of the kind. Thank you for watching this video. In the next webinar, we'll talk about trading toolkit or traders toolkit from different perspectives. We will talk about services for seasonal analysis. We will talk about other services related to trading. So keep in touch and see you in the next video.